The wisdom of ripening. Thank you for joining us again today. Subscribing and leaving a like are the kindest support you can give. What if the life you trust shifted in one breath? What if a stranger without a name opened the window of your heart? If an ordinary Saturday held a meeting that could divide your days in two, would you still step outside? I am Evelyn Hart, 59, living in a small apartment in Baltimore. My husband is nearly 80 and has survived 3 strokes, mostly bedbound now. I work part-time as a home health aide. For more than 20 years I was wife, in-law, and caregiver. Somewhere the person called Evelyn was folded away. A flyer appeared in our mailbox. One day at the shore. No questions asked. Private rooms. I meant to toss it. Instead it slipped into my purse. After dinner I opened it again, and a small electric breath ran through me. When did I last keep time by my own pulse? Next morning I called. Saturday, 6:30 departure, back by 9:30, lighthouse at Assateague, single rooms. I heard myself say, I will book. When my husband asked where, I said training and that I would be home late. The lie left easily. Guilt and relief arrived together like a tide. At dawn I set out breakfast and pills and asked our son to stop by. At the station the coordinator paired us. My partner wore a gray jacket. On the bus he offered me the window seat. Thank you, I said. Son laid a stripe across the highway. After a quiet stretch he said, first time. Your fingers are shaking. I laughed. Does it show? It is my first time too, he said. For today, shall we pick names that make us brave? Call me Nora, I said. Then I will be James. We traded light questions. Food we loved, places we missed, songs from back then. At home I spoke at the pace of illness. With James the first found a tempo that fit and still made room for another person. By noon the harbor shone. After lunch we were free. Most formed groups. James asked if I wanted to climb the lighthouse. I said yes. Waves chased our ankles and slipped away. When water reached us he drew me closer to sand. When our hands brushed, my heart flashed like a small star. Near the top the path steepened. We paused to breathe. No hurry, he said. He had learned classical guitar as a boy. I once painted with watercolors. The thought of color lifted like the lid. From the railing we watched the horizon darken. Freedom, I whispered. Me too, he answered. Night came. On the way down I caught my foot, and his hand closed around my arm. A current ran through me. Thank you, I said. It was time for dinner. The house carried simple rules. Do not ask the past. Do not trade numbers. Words from today will be set down tomorrow. I folded the paper. The rules warned and also allowed. Inside me, guilt pulled one way and breath the other. I was sorry for my husband. I also needed one day to be only myself. For one evening I wanted to call my own name and hear it answer back. Dinner wound down, and most drifted toward the karaoke room. The house had set up for fun. I slipped outside to the deck. Footsteps followed at a kind pace. Nora, want to walk? James spoke low. We turned toward the darker stretch of beach. The sand still held the day. Thin waves touched our toes. We walked without talking for a long time. At the end of the jetty we sat on a low rock and watched the water settle. James said, "For one day I learned how far I had let my heart fall behind." I stood beside him and let our shadows lie together on the water. He turned. "Nora, today is not our real names. Maybe that is why I feel braver than usual." I smiled. "Borrowed names are a small shelter." He nodded. He looked at my hands. "May I?" I opened my fingers. His palm met mine and stayed. Warmth flowed across the thin bridge of skin. We kissed. The first kiss was small and careful, tasting of salt and night. The third took one loose brick out of a wall we did not name. His arms circled my waist. I placed my hand on his chest and felt the beat answer the waves. After a while we caught our breath and laughed. He asked if we could go to his room. The answer that would never have left my mouth on any other night rose without strain. Yes. The words shone. We chose the side path, away from the lights. Once the door closed, the curtains sighed. The room accepted the sound of the sea as a soft drum. Touch arrived without rush and without retreat. Buttons gave way. The air warmed. We learned each other with slow hands. When his mouth touched the hollow of my neck, a small light ran through my skin. Remembered grace returned. I whispered, "Keep me from forgetting this day." He said, "Tonight you get to be only you." Night lengthened and asked for nothing. We held hands often and met each other with our eyes. Breath climbed and fell. Dawn moved along the window. We lay side by side and watched the ceiling. My voice came first. "My name is Evelyn Hart." He smiled. "Andrew Hale. It is good to meet you, Evelyn." The border of the day grew clear. We would leave this room and return to the lives waiting for us. At breakfast we sat among others and kept our voices light. On the bus home Andrew asked, very gently, if we might exchange numbers. I kept my eyes on the water and said no. Let today remain today. It was a promise to respect the line. The bus rocked me toward sleep. I closed my eyes and felt the sea and his breath drift away. Tomorrow I would return to pills and lists. Today I crossed the water while holding a hand. When we pulled into the station we said the plain words people say. Take care. Be well. We walked away. The light of night fell from our hands, but the warmth did not fade. Outside the window the waves kept time with our breath, steady and kind. 6 months passed. The house returned to its familiar rhythm. My husband stayed much the same. I worked, cooked, and kept the pills on schedule. The warmth of that day folded into a quiet corner of me, both guilt and gratitude. On a plain Tuesday the rice cooker hissed, and a dull thud came from the living room. I found my husband on the floor, gray and damp. I called 911 and checked his breath. Shallow and fast, no answer. The ambulance came quickly. We rode to a large teaching hospital downtown. In the emergency room a nurse asked questions and a resident examined him. They suspected a blocked artery and called the team. My hands shook as I signed the consent. The pen pressed hard. A man in a white coat stepped toward me. Are you the spouse? I looked up. Andrew Hale. He hid the surprise. He spoke in the voice of work. An artery is acutely blocked. We need to intervene now. Please sign, and we will take him in now. His eyes stayed on the chart and the monitor, not on me. I signed. He nodded and moved with his team. Green lights carried him to the suite. I sat in the waiting area and counted the clock. Feeling would wait. What I loved had to live. 90 minutes later, Andrew returned in scrubs. The vessel was open and flow restored. He would go to intensive care, then to the floor later. Tears came fast, not loud. "Thank you," I said. He bowed his head. The attending would explain the plan. He would see us on morning rounds. My husband spent 2 nights in intensive care where machines set the tempo. Each morning Andrew came with the team, spoke clearly, and did not look at me for long. We did not use each other's names. The night by the water stayed pressed between pages we could not open there. Yet when he spoke about the heart, a faint echo of the sea moved in his voice. Before dawn on the 3rd day I climbed to the rooftop for air. The city lay in pale light. A step sounded behind me. Evelyn. The name traveled like a small warm wind. Andrew stood with a paper cup of coffee and a sweater over his shirt. He said my husband was improving and might eat soon. I thanked him. He said people call repeated chance fate. In this moment he was my husband's doctor, and I was his advocate. His words drew a clear line and made a small fence to protect us. I nodded. I know. Let that night be that night. He hesitated and offered the cup. I did not take it. We said nothing more. On discharge day Andrew reviewed the medicines and dates. My husband thanked him again and again. Andrew smiled and said the team deserved the credit. His glance passed lightly over me and returned to the chart. It felt like both blessing and farewell. We drove home. My husband said 3 times that the doctor had saved his life. I agreed. Some thanks do not fit into words. Some guilt does not fade with talk. Both sat inside me, waiting for time to teach them to live together. Life after discharge asked for careful hands. I labeled the pillbox and set alarms. We lowered salt and added short walks. My husband often sat by the window and watched the street. At the first checkup we arrived early. The waiting room held worry and hope in equal measure. His name was on the door of the clinic. The nurse called names in a steady voice. When our turn came, Andrew reviewed the chart. Any shortness of breath, any pain at night, my husband answered. I handed over a neat log of blood pressure and pills. "Good work," he said. "See you in 3 months." At the door my husband thanked him again. I bowed my head. Our eyes almost met and moved on. Meaning stayed inside that glance. I stood in the stairwell. There were 2 coasts in me. One was the house where I stood as wife and advocate. The other was a shore where a night once burned low and kind. They waited. 3 months later the numbers were steady and we kept going. The next visit was handled by a covering physician. The nurse said Dr. Hale was away for study. I felt loss and also a small relief. Another doctor examined my husband with care. At the end the nurse called my name and handed me a small envelope. "This is from Dr. Hale. He asked me to pass it on." I placed it in my bag and did not open it. At home I set the envelope on the kitchen table. Inside lay a booklet on heart care and a folded note. The note said that the materials might help my husband, and that the memory of that day was dear. Be well, Andrew. Between the pages was a small photo of a lighthouse at red evening. My chest pricked as if a chord had been touched. I slid the note back into the booklet. It was not a number or a request. It was a careful greeting across distance. I turned the first page and marked what mattered. Cut salt. Walk at an easy pace. Space the medicines through the day. When my husband woke, I suggested a lighter dinner of tofu and greens. He nodded the way habit learns a new step. That night rain tapped the window. I tucked the photo under a magnet on the fridge. No one would ask about it and I would not have to answer. Some stories keep their shape when left untitled. A song from long ago drifted from the radio. I hummed along, one line at a time. Days went on. I checked the pillbox, shopped, washed my husband's feet at night. In small spaces I opened a sketchbook and drew a horizon and a small light. My hand was clumsy, but my mind grew steady in practice. When I thought of Andrew, I felt less thunder and more quiet air. Our story was small. It was a match that showed a bit of path, then went dark so duty could be seen. 3 more months passed. My husband's face brightened. He set aside the wheelchair and began to use a cane. I matched his pace with a half step behind. One night at dinner he said I seem more at peace. I told him that being alive was enough. Inside me the two coasts finally found a shared tide. Late in the fall the air turned clear. At the clinic another doctor saw us. A nurse asked if the materials had helped. I said yes. Days later I rode a bus to the coast. With lunch and pills set out my husband could manage a few hours. And our son agreed to stop by. The harbor was quiet and the path was nearly empty. When my breath ran short I stopped and watched the pale lines of waves. Months stacked inside me like that. At the top I placed my hands on the rail and watched gulls. I whispered that a trip can ask nothing. A life lived only as wife or caregiver forgets a name. One day of calling it back can be a rescue. That night we did not steal the future. We held one day and kept it. The wind rose. I closed my coat. When I pictured Andrew, the first image was not the lean of his body near mine, but his calm under surgical lights. Hands that pull a person toward life. Those same hands steadied me. What lasts is the way a person stands inside work. We were gifts to each other in a form that did not need the word love. He helped me return with strength. I hoped I helped him honor his. On the beach I opened my sketchbook. I drew the flat line of the sea and a small point of flame. The drawing was steady. Change moves slowly. Yesterday I held guilt and gratitude back to back. Today I asked them to face each other and speak. The bus home ran past gold fields. I whispered that living days should not arrive too late. In Baltimore the evening lights came on. At the door my husband looked up and asked where I went. The market, I said. The lie left my mouth again, this time. It felt like a small secret that protects the work of living. We must learn which truths to guard and which to share. I cooked, set out the pills, and washed his feet in warm water. Before bed I glanced at the photo on the fridge. The lighthouse kept its small fire. One day someone may ask where it came from. I will say my heart wished to see the sea, and there I met a self I had forgotten. I cracked the window and a thin strip of air came in. The sound of distant water visited the room, or maybe it was memory. Life may be a journey without a full map. A distant light can turn a course by one gentle degree. Once I was a small boat and someone became a brief light on my water. Now I will keep watch at home. I will be the lamp that guides us to morning. When the room grows dark, I will think of that steady beam. And remember that we do not need every answer to move forward. The next morning I made a small ritual. Open the window, breathe twice, call my name inside my mind, and speak one line of the day. The order was simple and it pleased my heart. The sun laid a thin pattern on the floor and the kettle came to a gentle boil. I held my mug at the rail and looked up at a slice of blue. Be well today, I said. Then I began. If anything in video resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your simple words can become a ripening wisdom that changes someone else's life. If this video reminds you of a family member, friend, or acquaintance, please share it with them. This single video can offer a little comfort and great courage to those who are struggling alone. You can't buy health, but you can hit the subscribe and like buttons, a wise choice you can make right now. If you'd like to join us on this journey of ripening wisdom, be sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. I am truly grateful to be a part of your journey toward a golden, ripening life. Your actions today can create a different tomorrow. Thank you for joining us today at The Wisdom of Ripening. We'll see you in the next video. Always stay healthy and have a day of grace and dignity.